Hey guys, we're here on Sunday morning trying to get my stuff done so I can enjoy the nice weather today. We're going to go with 2018's FRQ. I gave you some instructions. If you have not gone through those instructions and gone through those practice problems, pause the video, go give it a shot. Okay, do yourself a favor. All right, remember it's okay to miss some things right now, but we're going with 2018. So anyway, pause the video if you didn't do it. If you're ready to roll, here we go. So our first question is, first of all, we've got to assume the United States economy is in a recession. Okay, so what's going to have us draw this graph straightforward here. Price level, we've done this 100 times in the last couple days, couple weeks. All right, and we need it to the left. So we've got long run aggregate supply there. Here's our Y1 that it says to label. Here's our price level 1 that it says to label. All right, going to part B here, it says that the Eurozone goes into a recession. Now, what we've got to understand is that in the Eurozone, if they go into a recession, what that means is they're making less money, okay? And just like if we made less money, we would buy less stuff from other countries, okay? So what they want you to do, and it's a little bit tricky because we've usually fixed recessions, right? So in this particular case, they're just saying, all right, we're starting in a recession. The Eurozone doesn't have any money anymore, okay? So we're going to decrease our aggregate demand. It's something that we haven't really done yet, okay? But don't talk yourself out of it. Keep it simple, okay? And again, if you have your notes out, especially as you're going through this, you should be able to tie that together, okay? So anyway, we've got a new price level. We've got a new output, right? Because that's the next part. It says, on your graph in part A, show the effect of the change identified in real output. So output goes down. So output decreases. And then it asks you about unemployment. Yes, and unemployment is going to increase. All right, pretty straightforward. If you've got your notes, you're going slow, I think you can get there. All right, we skip part C. We don't need to go over that part of the course. So we're going ahead to part D here, and it says, assume the United States implements a combo of expansionary fiscal and monetary policies in the absence of complete crowding out. Remember, that's when the government borrows too much money and people can't borrow any of it themselves. Okay, in the absence of that, what's going to affect how's it going to affect the following things? So first of all, we know that expansionary aggregate demand is going to increase. Now, here's the thing. Some of you guys that may be a little bit struggling with this part of the question, right? You've got a 50-50 shot, okay? So what happens to aggregate demand? Is it going to increase or decrease? You got a 50-50 shot. Sometimes, it takes some luck to be successful. So keep that in mind that again, don't just blow it off, okay, because you don't have any idea, or you may think that you don't have any idea. Take a guess. It ain't going to hurt anything. What's going to happen to the price level? The price level is going to increase. Okay, remember what we're trying to do is, obviously, we're trying to shift this aggregate demand back to the right. They don't make you draw it. We're just showing you here, right? So we're kind of going back to the original. Obviously, the eventual goal is to get back to there, but it doesn't ask you to identify that. Now, part D, I struggled with, I'll be honest, it asks you about the interest rates, right? So first of all, we know that monetary policy is going to lower interest rates in this case, right? Expansionary. Now, what it doesn't really give us too much full information, all right? And I tried to overthink things a little bit, and I didn't see it. What it doesn't really give us too much information about is the government borrowing more money? I guess we've got to assume that in this case. It's not necessarily a super, super clear question. But it does mention the crowding out, okay? It says if it doesn't completely crowd out, so maybe we're only partly crowding out and talking about the interest rates going up from the government borrowing money. Like I said, I don't love how the question's worded. The answer they want is, since monetary lowers interest rates and fiscal policy is going to borrow money, increase the demand for interest rates, our graph would look something like this, right? So here's our supply, right? Interest rates, quantity. Remember when we had those double shifters back with the supply and demand stuff? Okay, that's kind of what they want you to try to tie together here. So they're saying we have an increase in demand, and we'd also have a decrease in supply. I'm sorry, an increase in supply. So we'd have an increase in supply, and we don't know where this interest rate's going to end up. So the answer they want is indeterminate. Okay, that's the question that they want. And again, you'll want to be able to explain the increase in the supply and the increase in demand of the of the loans from the federal government that creates that. All right, a little bit something new right here. Okay, but again, I think the more that we see, the better shot that we give ourselves to be successful. All right, for number two, they're asking you if people earn more money. Okay, which if we decrease the tax rate in this case, so I get to hold on more. Well, remember what they're trying to, and you don't need to explain it this way, but what they're trying to remember we're trying to get you to remember is we have the marginal propensity to consume, which usually we use that number like 80%, right? And marginal propensity to save. So we're going to save some of our money no matter what if we get more. Okay, so savings are going to increase. Okay. And it's going to ask us to show that on a graph. So we're going to increase our supply of money. Interest rates are going to go down. That's for part B. Okay. Yes, it asks you what happens to interest rates. Interest rates decrease. Make sure you write that. Okay. And then it ties into, all right, well, what's that going to do to the effect of aggregate demand? Well, you don't necessarily need to know this to know that if the government cuts taxes, our aggregate demand is going to increase. Okay. And if our aggregate demand increases, all right, obviously that's going to raise the price level. They don't ask us about that. Part C2, okay, this might be from the next unit. It's kind of a mix of the next unit that we're not touching on. I'm sorry, the last unit that we don't touch on and some other stuff. And it says, okay, what happens now? What we've got to understand is with these lower interest rates, we have more business investment, okay, and that's going to increase long run aggregate supply. Again, in the long run, right, due to more business investment. And again, that can mean a couple different things. Again, investment is not necessarily paying people lower wages or higher wages. So investment, what you've got to understand is that might be buying more land, that might be building more machines that can dig deeper into the land to get more resources. It can be any number of things that make the process of producing things more efficient. Again, that's going to be the long run. We have not talked about too many questions with that. Okay. Anytime that you're drawing the long run aggregate supply, long run aggregate demand, aggregate demand, short run aggregate supply, we're not going to shift that curve out to the right. They're not going to ask you that. So try not to get too mixed up. Again, we're talking about long-term investment because businesses can borrow money and they're able to build better buildings. Again, in the long run, right? We're not talking short run where, oh, people's wages have gone down. Okay, how am I going to behave next week, right? We're talking long run. Okay, I can borrow some money today, so now it's going to take me a year to build these buildings. Okay, there is a little bit of a difference, something we haven't touched too much on, but I thought it'd be important for you to see it. All right, number three here, kind of the reason why, actually, I wanted to pick this year's stuff, the 2008 stuff, because it does go back and it reviews some things. So for the first part here, okay, it's asking us about this opportunity cost, right? And it's talking about comparative advantage, which we tie into opportunity cost, but they word it in a really weird way, something that we really haven't seen, okay? So it says country X takes 1 hour to produce a unit of consumer goods, 2 hours to produce capital goods. Country Y, 2 hours to produce consumer, and 4 hours to produce capital. And so, okay, like we can go in and say, okay, well, if we only work for 1 hour, we can put some decimals in there. Here's what I did for this, okay? I took 4 hours. Okay, so I just assumed the workday was 4 hours or whatever, all right? So I took 4 hours. I've got country X, I've got country Y, and I'm going to set up my little T-chart that we've worked on for several different times. All right. And then I'm going to set up, I've got my consumers, my consumer products, and I've got my capital products. All right. And so if I take 4 hours, right, X can produce it takes 1 hour to produce a unit, right? So they can produce 4. And then you read through, they can produce 2 capitals in an hour, or it takes them an hour to produce 2. They can produce 2. Y on the other side of things is 2 and 1. Now I have some math that I don't need to make my brain hurt to figure out, okay? And it asks you which country has the comparative advantage. Well, comparative advantage for producing consumer goods. Okay, so we've got to solve for consumer. Okay, so for the X side of things, we've got 4 consumer equals 2 capital, right? And Y, we've got 2 consumer equals 1 capital. And we've just got to solve for our CO right here. Okay, so divide by 4. Okay, 1 consumer equals 1/2 capital. That's what we've got. Okay, I put a box around it so I know what I'm looking at, right? Okay, so over here you've got to divide by 2. We've got 1 consumer equals 1/2 capital. They try to throw you a curveball here. Okay, so they say, all right, which one has it? Neither one has it in this particular case. So the answer is neither. Both have the same opportunity cost is what you'll want to write. Opportunity cost of 1/2. Okay, so number 3A is neither. Both have same opportunity cost. Okay, is what you want to know for that. All right, again, they throw you these small, stupid curveballs like this one here, right? We usually don't have too many ties, okay? Trust your math, trust what you're doing, all right? And maybe rework the problem 2 times through and then be like, okay, I trust what it is, all righty? And like with number 1, hey, we're in a recession. Oh, guess what? The recession just got worse because foreigners aren't buying our stuff anymore, okay? So they do some of those things that you know in your brain what you want, but we haven't practiced too many of them. Okay, so anyway, the nice thing is we've been practicing in the case of the last couple of weeks here that hopefully we get better, more comfortable. All right, so moving forward, we've got part B. We're going to calculate the unemployment rate. I'm going to erase 3A here. All right, so I like this problem because it takes us back to some stuff that took us a while to that we did a long time ago. Okay, so first of all, we've got to remember the unemployment rate. So unemployment rate equals unemployed divided by what? Labor force, right? Okay. All righty. So we've got our number of people that are unemployed, frictionally unemployed, structurally unemployed, cyclically unemployed. So our unemployed is the easy one to find out. That's our numerator. Well, now we've got to figure the labor force. The tricky part about the labor force, right, is we've got to take this 180,000 and the unemployed people are also part of the labor force. Okay, so you've got 200,000 right there. Your unemployment rate equals 10%. Okay, is what you want. All right, pretty straightforward once you remember what you're trying to do. That's the tricky part. Now, here's one thing that you can maybe use against the test a little bit. Let's say that you tried to screw this up and you were at 20,000 over 180,000. Okay, well, you can fractionalize that, right? And you can eventually get there. Eventually, obviously, it gets you to about 1/9, which equals about 11.1%, I think. I don't think that they're going to give you a weird percentage like that. I don't think that they will. So you can maybe say, all right, let me double check. Let me see if I can go back and figure out what I did wrong, okay? But again, they're going to give you round numbers. You don't have access to a calculator, okay? You're not supposed to have access to a calculator. So anyway, just a little bit of a tip for you. Okay, labor force participation. Just another simple formula that you got to remember, okay? First of all, we already found this labor force, right? We already know who's in it. Remember, quick definition of labor force. I've got to be looking for a job. I've got to be employed, or I've got to be looking for a job, okay? So I've got to be wanting to work. So again, remember, not in the labor force people, retired people, children, stay-at-home moms, even military people not in, okay? They're not counted either. Okay, so we're going to go labor force divided by population. We already did the labor force last part of the problem. We've got 200,000, all right? And then we've got not in the labor force, over the population. So we've got to add 100,000 of that over 300,000. All right, that's 2/3. That is 66.67%, right? 66.6 repeating or whatever. All righty. So anyway, just a couple simple formulas that you got to do. Last thing they want you to do is they want you to draw a production possibilities curve with country X. So we're going back to point A, right? Now, they don't have you label it, okay, with numbers. So you don't need to worry about that. They just want to see this. Okay, they just want to see that you're able to draw something that looks like this. And then they say, all right, put put a spot labeled Z as a spot that reflects unemployment. The rule is they're not at full employment, so they're going to be somewhere in here. They've got some people that are not producing. They've got a Z somewhere inside this curve. You could put it here. You could put it here. You could put it anywhere that you want inside that curve. That's what they're trying to get you to. That's what they're trying to get you to do. All right. I hope things went kind of quick for you today. We'll probably do something similar coming up on Wednesday, and maybe a little bit of a day off coming up on Friday. We'll kind of see how, not a day off, but something really light, like a stock check or something. So anyway, the weeks are kind of winding down here. So we'll make sure that we are getting this stuff done. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. You're probably not watching this on Sunday. I hope you had a good day on Sunday, and we'll talk soon.